Hey, well, welcome to our Survive and Thrive series that we've got going, over the period of the COVID virus, which has affected all of us. And we're here talking with Dave Geada today. And Dave is the marketing boss of BoldBrush and FASO. Now, we've got some points that we want to bring up as well, Dave. But before we start that, tell me a little bit more about you and the organization you work for as well.
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure. But before I do, I want to tell you how thrilled I am to be here today with you. This is like one of the things on my bucket list was I got to do a video with Graeme. So I'm so glad I finally got the chance to do that. And I'll start with the company. So BoldBrush, we've been around for about 20 years now. Mm-hmm. We got our start in early 2000. And back then we were known as this really easy platform for artists to create their websites. And over the years, our platform has actually evolved to be more than just a website building tool. So along with the website tool, which is still the core of the product, we've also got features that help with marketing. We also have automated marketing features. We've got marketing channels that help artists reach an audience of collectors and gallery owners and fine artists. And along with the product, we also do a bunch of stuff for artists to help them. So we have a contest that we run every month. We also have an advertising platform. So if an artist wants to advertise, they can use our advertising platform. We have instructional art video platform that we have that helps folks learn right from the comfort of their studio. And I could go on and on and on. We have newsletters too, but all of this stuff is really geared towards helping artists become successful, to do what they want to do with their lives professionally, which is to paint and inspire the world. And I've been the chief marketing officer here now for a little over 7 years, going on 8 years now. And in that time, I've literally talked to thousands of artists, as you can imagine, mostly about marketing and selling art. You meet so many amazing, wonderful people in our line of work. Mm-hmm. Because these aren't just folks that, paint and that's it, right? These are folks that are trying to have an impact on the world. They're trying to inspire people through the beauty that they create. Yes. And so I couldn't think of a better audience of folks to support and work with and help become successful.
What we can do, we're going to talk about some points today in regards to what we're doing. And one of them is a unique selling point. And we'll both discuss this as we go along, but I'd like you to basically start the conversation. And so what do you think are unique selling points for artists? What makes them stand out of the crowd, so to speak?
Well, before I can answer that question, I think we really need to get to the heart of the matter and ask ourselves, what do collectors actually buy? They buy stories. They buy, and more specifically, they buy stories about the artist and their artwork that speak to them, right? That make them feel good about the stories they believe about themselves and the world that they live in.
Yes. And
the art, in a sense, is merely a symbol. It's a physical reminder of the story that they want to be reminded of. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about a unique selling proposition, especially when it comes to art, it's really all about figuring out what your story is. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of it, because everybody's story is unique. No two stories are exactly the same. No. Okay? But it's important to tell your story in a certain way. And specifically, what I mean by that is you need to be genuine with your story. Okay? So it can't be made up. Mm-hmm. And you have to provide enough detail that it seems plausible and realistic to somebody who's listening to it or reading it. Okay? And at the same time, you also have to be vulnerable and be willing to share all aspects of your story. And that's probably the biggest mistake that I see artists making when they're trying to do this is they're almost afraid or ashamed to talk about some of the challenges, whether those are challenges in their life or challenges in their creativity and in their arts, and they shy away from talking about that stuff. And the way I describe it is that it's like that friend that we all have on Facebook. You know the one I'm talking about, who always posts about how wonderful their family is, how wonderful their kids are, what a wonderful marriage they have, what a wonderful ham sandwich they had for lunch. Oh, yeah. And when I see those people on Facebook, like many of you who are probably listening to this, I just scroll right over it.
Yeah.
And if I think anything, I just think, oh, she's at it again, or he's at it again, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that person,
Yeah.
right? So part of being genuine is talking about the tough stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Your story is what's going to make you unique, and by telling all parts of it,
Yeah.
good, bad, everything in the middle, that's how you sell art, because you're selling a story.
I think, and I did that recently with obviously the condition that I have developed, and I wasn't expecting. I'm not looking for sympathy by any means. It's just part of the story that I'm involved in, as far as my artwork is concerned. And then people were generally quite interested in what was happening, and I just said, it's just life. You have to deal with these things as they come to you, and hopefully, if your experience can help others in the proviso, well and good. I would hope that would be the case.
I'm not a betting man, but I'd be willing to put $1 million on a table down in Vegas that more than a few people were comforted by your story,
mm-hmm.
and thought to themselves, "Wow, yeah, I'm not alone."
Yeah, I was quite surprised actually, because I got thousands of comments on it. It was just like, wow.
You got to get to the bottom of what I call your artist's why, and what I mean by that specifically is that all artists that I talk to all say the same thing. They all say how, like, from the time that they were little, they picked up a crayon and a piece of paper and started drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But only a few of those little kids that do that actually become artists.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you need, unfortunately, is some event in your life, something that happened to you.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a good thing, but a lot of times it's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a heightened emotional state that pretty much sets everything else in motion, right? It's what gets you to continue painting beyond the point anybody else would have stopped.
Yeah.
If you think about all the obstacles that go before us. And if you can understand what that is, a couple of amazing things happen. One is you begin to finally be able to tell your story in a convincing, genuine sort of way, because now you have a better understanding of who you are and why you are, and so it helps you frame the narrative. The other benefit to it is it's also an amazing decision-making tool, because once you understand that artist's why, and you'll know what it is, you'll know when you found your artist's why, because first of all, you'll feel incredibly uncomfortable. Right? It'll take you a long time to get there, and the longer you look for it, the harder you push, the more your psyche is going to resist. Right? It's going to try to protect itself and deflect, or get emotional and angry, and try to short circuit your attempt to get to it. But that's when you know you're on the right scent. And then when you figure out what it is, you can then go back and take a look at all the decisions you've ever made across your life, and finally understand why.
It's that belief that other people have in you as well. You have to get yourself to a place where you go, I can do this. And then I think you are risen up on the backs of the other people that believe you as well.
Absolutely. And actually, when we talk to artists about, not just a unique selling proposition, but storytelling. If you think about the great stories, all the great stories had a few things in common. One is they had a familiar structure, right? There's a beginning and a middle and an end. And the other thing they all have in common is that they all have a hero or heroine in it, who in the beginning of the story isn't the hero or heroine, but they overcome some challenge or obstacle and ultimately become the hero or heroine they were meant to be. And along the way, they meet sometimes one, sometimes several people who end up being their guides and help them along on that journey, and basically help them in that arc in becoming the hero. And what a wonderful way to think about your story. There are two parts to all this, right? Obviously, you have to have a story, and something that's unique and genuine and open and true and vulnerable and all the things we talked about. But without a channel to get your story across, that makes it really hard. And so you're selling yourself short, because you guys are great at helping artists get their story down in a video format, but you also have this amazing distribution channel. where you take that story and you broadcast it everywhere. Like one of my favorite stories was the one you shared with me about the artist who sold a piece of work after somebody who was stuck on a Virgin flight saw your show. Right?
Oh, it's great.
That's a wonderful story.
There's a few artists that have had that happen to them. It's quite funny.
Exactly. Here's the thing about art, and I think the wonderful thing is it is a form of storytelling, but it's co-creative.
Mm-hmm.
So as the observer of the art, I'm bringing my stories to that moment when I'm experiencing the art. And it's that interplay between what the artist intended and what the viewer is actually experiencing and how they're processing that experience. That's why I say it's co-creative. Every form of art is this way. It doesn't matter if you're, if we're talking about hyperrealism all the way to, abstract art. It's a co-creative process.
Yeah. And
another way of thinking about that, it's a shared act of storytelling.
Yeah.
And so part of the trick here is to, as well as tell the story about yourself, tell the story of that piece. And, and there's a lot to say there, right? From, why did I pick this particular subject to why did I use this color palette, and how am I challenging myself as I'm painting this piece? What are the boundaries I'm trying to push? How am I thinking about this compositionally? And why am I thinking about it in that way?
Yeah.
And so part of this, as you're talking about your art, is, thinking out loud and expressing that out loud with intentionality, because that's what storytelling requires.
Yeah.
This type of selling through storytelling requires intention.
We've had 6 artists pass away on us since we started the series, which is quite sad. But I think that it's in the instances when the family or the agent or the gallery phones you up and says, look, we just think it's fantastic what you've done, and we'd really like to thank you because she's still here with us, and she always will be now. And that sort of meant a lot to me, because the fact is that the grandkids could come in and see that's grandma there, and that's what she used to do, and these are the paintings. So it's just not just about a matter of producing a marketing tool. It was something that would leave a legacy as well.
Well, here's the funny thing. When we do pass away, what do we leave behind? Our stories. Right? Like whenever my family gets together, for barbecues, birthdays, whatever the occasion may be, we spend a bit of time telling stories about the people that have passed, the people that we miss.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite stories to tell is about my wife's grandfather, maternal grandfather. His name was Grandpa Herbie. And Grandpa Herbie was one of the kindest, gentlest guys you'd ever want to meet. And he was what I would call my barbecue buddy, because he and I would take care of each other at the family barbecue. Like if he was going up for an ear of corn, he grabbed me one, and I would do the same for him. And I loved hanging out with him at barbecues, especially if they were serving corn, because the way he would eat, right, is sort of the way I imagine you at the canvas painting, right? He just, that was it. That was the only thing going on in his life at that moment, was that piece of corn on the cob. And he would eat it with such relish and joy. And my fondest memory of him was this one time where he put the corn down and he's licking his lips, and his lips are all covered with butter from the corn. Yeah. And he's got this one ear of corn on the top of his lip that he can't quite get. And he's like going like this, trying to get it. And just with this big smile on his face. Okay. Grandpa Herbie's still with me. Yeah. And he's still with the family through these stories that we tell. And the stories that we tell and we share and that other people share with us essentially become the tapestry of our life. And so what better gift to give the world, aside from your art, but your story.
Absolutely.
And it's just a bonus that it helps you sell art.
Yeah.
But it does really work. It's incredible, but it works.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Well, we covered some great subjects. You're a very knowledgeable man, and I just, obviously being the CMO of that wonderful company that you work with, BoldBrush and FASO. But thanks so much once again for your information, and hopefully we can get you back soon to talk about some other things as well. But thanks anyway. My pleasure, and you'd have a hard time getting me not to come back. Okay. Because you're an awesome interviewer, and look, before we go, I just wanted to commend you for sharing your story with everybody, because it does take courage and it takes a generous heart, and you have plenty of both. So thank you. It's very nice of you to say. Thank you. It really is.